When you look at Edward Hopper's Rooms by the Sea, what sticks out to you? For most of us, it's that white trapezoid shape. This shape is not an accident by the artist, but an element in the painting used for several things. The top diagonal directs our eyes to a line into the room and to the space behind the wall on the left. He creates the shapes by distinct value changes of light and dark. This shape also divides up the values in the image, dark on the left and light on the right. He depicts the texture of the waves with value changes and unique brushstrokes. Decoding artwork this way, discussing the visual elements of the work, is using the vocabulary of art. The 8 visual elements, or elements of art, are terms used to describe the way a work of art is put together, or as the text says, ingredients an artist has available to use in a work of art. We're going to discuss all of these visual elements in detail. There are several types of line: outlines and contour lines, and lines that show movement, and implied lines. Keith Haring has used line to separate the image of the merman from the background. The line is a visual tool used to illustrate this, but there really wouldn't be a line separate an object from its background. If you see a person standing in front of you, is there a line around them? No, it's the edge of their shape that you see. In this next image of an installation, Judy Pfaff uses line to move our eyes around the space and to create a feeling of movement and energy in the space. We'll see a piece by Keith Haring and talk more about him when we get to the section on drawing. An outline defines a two-dimensional shape. This is an outline of the state of Maryland. A contour is the boundary we perceive on a three-dimensional shape. Contour lines are the ones we use when drawing those boundaries. This hand has a three-dimensional feel to it. It's impossible to look at this photograph by Cartier-Bresson without your eyes following the railings through the image. They create visual directional lines that force your eye to move along them. Artists use these lines to compose their images so that you look at all of the image. Your eye will look around the whole image. Diagonal lines are typically used to create that movement. What other objects has the photographer used to move the eye around the photograph? Well, he's also placed the people, these ladies in their black outfits, also in a diagonal to move your eye as well. Certain lines have different effects. Vertical lines tend to be assertive. Horizontal lines tend to be more calming, and diagonal lines imply action. When viewing artwork, we react to these lines subconsciously, but realizing why we have these reactions helps us appreciate the technical aspects of art that artists use in their work. We'll see this painting in person when we visit the National Gallery on our field trip. In the Raft of the Medusa, diagonal lines are everywhere. All of the body strained diagonally to the right toward the lone sailor trying to get the attention of a probably passing ship. The rope line leads our eyes diagonally to the left, where we can see the sail is blowing and blowing the survivors in the wrong direction. This is not by accident. Géricault planned all of these diagonals to create drama and attention to different parts of the painting. He used implied line to create this effect. What painting did we see last class that has a similar composition? I hope you remember this painting, Delacroix's Liberty Leading the People. When you see these paintings side by side, you clearly can see the use of the diagonal lines to add drama to the image, and hopefully you notice the triangular composition. Please remember these images for your test. The same is true in Watteau's painting, The Embarkation for Cythera. See how he used an implied line to force the viewer's eye to move about the image. Once you see and learn this artist's technique, it's hard not to notice it when you view art. Shape is an enclosed line, in other words, two-dimensional area with borders. All shapes have figure and ground, or what we call positive and negative space. Figure or ground shapes are those we focus on. Ground or negative is the area surrounding the positive shapes. I will probably use terms positive and negative spaces rather than figure and ground, since that's what I'm used to. However, ground and figure are probably the more modern terms. In this painting by Emma Whitehouse, you see shapes that go in and out of the background, but you can still see the positive shapes and the negative area. So what would be the positive shapes? Well, it'd be those who are the darker blue, the darker colors, and of course the light background is the negative space. In Mondrian's painting, that differentiation is much more defined. What is positive and what is negative is much clearer. Also, when discussing shape and mass, they can be divided into two broad categories, organic and geometric. Organic shapes tend to mirror natural shapes, like the shell or the cabbage by Weston. The masses and shapes in the Emma Whitehouse image are organic, and those in Mondrian's image are geometric. Remember that for your test. Mass is a three-dimensional form with boundaries. A square is a mass. My body is a mass. Mass also has positive and negative shapes. In Bill Reed's beautiful sculpture depicting the discovery of humans by the raven, which is a story told by the Haida people in the Pacific Northwest, you can sense which areas come forward and which ones are concave or go back from us in space. The concave areas are the negative spaces, and those that come forward toward us are the positive spaces. Also, clearly it is created using more rounded or organic shapes. This Mora sculpture, the bicycle race, is created using geometric shapes. Figure ground reversal is the concept of positive and negative space as well. In this shield, either the gold or the black can become positive or negative depending on your perspective. So what are some techniques that artists use to imply shape and mass? Using different types of line will imply shape and mass. You can see how Michelangelo has made this figure seem to be three-dimensional by creating light and dark areas that we call shading and modeling. One technique he used to create shading and modeling is hatching, where you see single lines drawn closely together. That creates a shadow or a value. Another technique he used to create modeling and shading is called cross-hatching. When lines are intersected like a checkerboard, it's cross-hatching. Stippling, sometimes interchanged for pointillism, is another technique that creates modeling and shading. You do it by placing dots close or far apart to suggest dark or lighter areas in an image, or to create values in the image. Okay, we saw how artists use implied lines to lead our eyes around the work. They also use shapes. You can see a triangular shape used in this image by Raphael. The top of Mary's head is the top or apex of the triangle, and it extends to the left bottom where John the Baptist is kneeling, and then to the right to Mary's foot. This triangle shape unites the objects in the painting. We will talk about this unifying triangle quite a bit when discussing Renaissance painting. We've seen three paintings before with this triangular composition. That would be Liberty Leading the People, Raft of the Medusa, and the Mona Lisa. Light is what allows us to see art, and it's also used in artwork by artists as a technique to illustrate form and shape. This slide of this Quaker meeting hall does not do this justice. The sky and the ceiling appear to be as one, a visual metaphor on what Quakers call the light within. This painting by Da Vinci illustrates two important ideas of implied light. Value is the areas in the image that are light and dark. We might say there are light and dark values along the arm of the infant in the middle of the painting, or there are very dark values inside the folds of the cloth. Value runs from bright white to black with gray shades in between. This value scale, using black and white, gives us an idea of the range of shades. The other important idea is chiaroscuro. It's a technique of using light and dark values to model and shade forms onto a two-dimensional surface, like drawing paper or a paint canvas. Da Vinci used hatching, cross-hatching, and stippling to create the values in this drawing made from charcoal and black and white chalk. The large drawing was made by gluing 8 sheets of paper together. From a distance, it all blends together beautifully. Close up, the image will seem much less blended because you can see the individual drawn lines. Do you see the triangle created by the figures? I hope so. Now, what is your favorite color? I'm always drawn to red. It just makes me feel good. When I wear it, I feel like I should be going to a party. Color gives us pleasure. Scientists have known for years that colors affect us psychologically. Our book tells us about studies that indicate that blue surroundings lower blood pressure, pulse, and respiration rate. That pink bubble gum in particular, in a room can calm violent children. That red stimulates our appetite. But color has also been used symbolically in many cultures. Buddhist monks wear orange because they believe this color aids spiritual focus. Yellow ribbons are used in America as a sign of hope for the safe return of our military. In China, green symbolizes green and corruption, and yet green symbolizes a sacred color in the Islamic faith. Purple has always been thought of as being a royal color. We all know that in our culture, white symbolizes good and black evil, but black also symbolizes intelligence and formality in our culture, like in a graduation robe, for instance. Earlier I told you that what we actually see is light reflected off objects, and color works the same way. A green chair absorbs all of the colors in a prism except green. It reflects green. How did we learn about this color? Well, a lot of our color theory we have today comes from the research of Sir Isaac Newton. We know him from his experiments with the laws of gravity. Artists use the color wheel as a way to learn about color. You all probably learned in elementary school about the color wheel, so some of this discussion you already know and understand. There are 3 primary colors: red, blue, yellow. These colors cannot be created by mixing other colors together. Then there are 3 secondary colors: orange, green, and violet. Each of these colors is created by mixing equal parts of a primary color. So for instance, if you mix equal parts of blue and yellow together, you get green. There are 6 intermediate or tertiary colors: yellow-orange, red-orange, yellow-green, blue-green, blue-violet, and red-violet. These colors are created by mixing a primary color with a secondary color. Colors are also divided into warm or cool colors. The blue-green side are cool colors, and the red-orange side are the warm colors. Today, artists have many more colors available for them to buy in oil and acrylic paints because chemistry has allowed us to create colors not achieved previously. Many artists also never use black paint out of a tube, but achieve black by mixing all the colors together. They feel it has a much more rich look on canvas, where black out of the tube tends to feel a bit black. I will use black acrylic paint, but never when I'm painting in oils. Now, what is an artist's palette? It actually has 2 meanings. It can be the colors that the artist has chosen when creating a work. The artist may be using a cool color palette, for instance, meaning blues or blue-greens. Or it can be the actual board that an artist puts the paint on. Now, you can buy a pad of wax finished paper that you can throw away. Cleaning the palette, that actual wood palette, can be really difficult. Color has 3 properties: hue, it's another word used for color, value, and intensity, or sometimes called saturation. In this color wheel, you see the colors in relation to a full range of values, which in this case is very light gray to a dark gray. In other words, you can affect the value of a color by adding black or white to it. See the blue scale on the side. You can affect the intensity of a color by adding another color or colors from the color wheel to it. You can see that on the sort of more of the gold color scale on the right-hand side. There are also color schemes, otherwise known as color harmonies. These 2 images have a monochromatic, mono meaning 1, color scheme. They are variations of the same hue. The only differences that you see here are they've added black and white to the color blue to create values. Using colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel are called complementary colors. When these colors are put side by side, they enhance each other. Many artists use this color scheme in their work. I use complementary colors when painting as a base for all of my paintings, in particular my oil paintings. As you start to look at artwork in the class, begin to notice and recognize what color scheme the artist is using, because it may have a big impact on the meaning and the visual drama of the work. Analogous color schemes use colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So on the left, we see the oranges and reds and yellows, which are next to each other on the color wheel. And on the right, we see the blue and the green used in this particular piece, which is on the right side of the color wheel. These also could be classified as a warm color choice and a cool color choice. You should be able to look at these three paintings and know which color scheme they belong in. Take a look at them and identify which color scheme, monochromatic, analogous, or complementary. There are some color combinations or techniques that play tricks on our eyes. After image is one of them. Stare at the black dot for a while, then shift your eyes to the white square. What you will get is a reversal of the colors. It will be a ghost-like image with red on the outside and green in the middle. Another optical effect is color mixing. George Seurat's work, A Sunday on La Grande Jatte, is the most well-known type of this optical effect. His painting technique is called pointillism or stippling. We talked about it a few minutes ago when we were talking about different drawing techniques you could use to get some shading effects. When you look closely at this work, the dots are very distinct, but from a distance, the colors blend together, very much like hatching and cross-hatching blends from a distance. In the close-up here, you can see how many small dots are in just this small part of the painting. So it's interesting to know that this painting is huge. It's 6.5 feet by 10 feet. Think of the time it must have taken to complete this work. A favorite and well-known 20th century artist, Chuck Close, creates optical effects by using a complex grid-based reconstruction of photographs he's taken. You can't help but be impressed with seeing how the multitude of colors and lines in the small detail come out to look like this image of a child. The 2002 portrait of his niece Emma is actually a woodcut print based on a painting in Close's style. Chuck spent 3 months on the painting. Master printer Yasu Shibata spent 2 years carving 27 wood blocks to print 113 colors 132 times to make each print. It's even more amazing considering that in 1988, Chuck Close developed a spinal infection which left him a quadriplegic. He has had to relearn the use of his hands, which have never returned to their full use. He's in a wheelchair and tapes a brush to his hand so that he can paint. As mentioned earlier, color has emotional effects on us. When we look at The Scream by Edvard Munch, we feel the anguish in this character and in the painting. Now, why do you think that is? Well, obvious is the figure with the skull-like head, and the expression provides clues to his anguish. But the lines aren't straight, but rounded and curved. The diagonal of the river going back in the painting isn't stable, but irregular and curved as well. So both of these implied lines add some drama to the image. Plus, of course, the colors, being complementary, blue and orange, react against each other to create tension in the image as well. Whereas going back to Whistler's Nocturne in Blue and Gold, the colors in these monochromatic colors are very calming, even creating a stillness, almost a sleepiness.